to the sword enthusiast is the 18th century shift from angular style saber mounts to round ones. This also affected the cross-section of scabbard and hilt, as we see in the following diagram. So here in the top we have the typical angular style. This is a 17th century peidao. On the bottom we have a 19th century saber with the round style, and I will now show you the cross-sections. So in the top you see everything is quite square. The fittings are all quite straight, everything is a straight line. If you look at the bottom two diagrams, you can see that the hilt cross-section and also the scabbard cross-section are different. So the angular style has a squared off cross-section with sharp corners. The rounded style has an oval cross-section. Another notable difference is that in the round style, cloud heads are introduced. These are usually part of cloud collars that are used in several Chinese art forms. It isn't that apparent when you just look at a fitting, but if you fold them out, as I have done in this drawing, you can see that they form a series of cloud collars. These design changes didn't only affect swords, although only in swords the cross-section changed markedly. You would also find them applied to, for example, bow cases and quivers. To the left you have a woodblock print of 1766 with the classical early Qing style. To the right you have the same book republished in 1801, where you see the cloud collar shapes, or the cloud heads, applied in all corners of the bow case. These are three officers from around the 1760s, where you can see to the left he has a very classical Qing shape still. In the center you already see applied cloud heads, but very subtle. You just see the edges of them. And to the far right you see a more flamboyant adaptation where the cloud heads are a different color. These three portraits are from around the same time, but it shows different levels of adaptation. The next slide, this is an early 19th century set where you can see the cloud head motifs are everywhere. You cannot get around them anymore. These cloud heads have a very ancient origin. When you see to the left there's a bronze mirror of the Eastern Zhou dynasty to the Warring States period. This is around 840 to 222 BC. They surround a circle in the center. This design was adopted by many people influenced by China, including the Persians and the Mongols. The Mongols used to put these cloud heads on the top of their tents. You can see Qianlong with a Mongol-style tent on the picture on the right. The significance of these cloud heads, these early cloud collars were often seen on items resembling the universe. They surrounded the gate of heaven, an opening presumed to be in the skies where the pole star is, which was the gate to the heavenly realm. The cloud collars would be around this gate and would have 4 cloud heads in number, each representing a cardinal direction. On clothing, cloud collars marked the division between the material part of a person, his body, and the spiritual part, his head, just as the sky gate was believed to separate the material universe from the realm of the spirit. Another comeback from ancient art motifs during the late Qianlong period is Kuei dragon motifs. You can also see them on Zhou dynasty and Warring States items, like this bronze hu. And they made their way to all kinds of saber designs. This is a peidao, probably an earlier blade than hilt. The hilt mounts are from around 1800, I think, showing almost exactly the same design as on these old bronze hu. The inspiration came, of course, from collections of high-level Qing officials that had collections of these bronze items, including the Qianlong Emperor. Now we've arrived at part 2, the when. When did these changes started? It's interesting to see that these changes seem to all be related to a single year. Here we have a page from a 1759 manuscript of the Qianlong Tushe in the National Museum of Scotland. This is a hand-drawn manuscript that was later published as a woodblock edition in 1766. It is our main source for ceremonial regalia and arms and armor of the Qianlong period. This is a Zhenrei saber, and it was presumably designed by Qianlong himself in 1748. The Zhenrei at this point consisted of 300 of Qianlong's best men that were especially trained to overcome difficult terrain and fortifications. He personally oversaw their training, and you could equate them with modern-day special forces. The text reads, Zhenrei Army Cloud Leather Saber, according to the design set in the 14th year of Qianlong, corresponding to 1748. And the rest is just the size, and it says it's similar to the style of the officer saber. The officer saber in question has a leather-covered scabbard, blue wrist lanyard, and blue silk handle wrap. Pretty much what we see on the painting as well. Another saber that doesn't have a date attached to it, but we can be sure it was designed before 1759, is a Qianlong and Junwang saber. These were imperial princes directly related to the emperor himself. He could also bestow this rank on men of special merit, one of the highest honors one could get during the Qing. This is the description. It shows how long it is and what kind of materials could be used. And it also says that the Eastern pearl is forbidden to use because this was only for the emperor himself and people that he specifically said could use them. 1748. This is quite a year for Qianlong, a tough year. It started at New Year's Eve, 1747. The Qianlong emperor lost his son and heir, Yongchong, to smallpox. He had high hopes for this kid. He named him heir, and it was the second child that the love of his life bore him, Empress Xiao Shanchun, also known as Lady Fuka. April 8th the same year, he lost her. She was the love of his life. They were extremely close. They married when he was still a prince. And he seemed to have lost his mind a little after she died. He applied extremely harsh punishments for whoever he thought didn't mourn deeply enough over her death, including some of his sons that were demoted. I don't know if it was a coping mechanism or maybe a fear of bad omens for the dynasty at large, but from this moment onwards, Qianlong started to obsessively involve himself with the most minute details of state affairs, including the design of weapons for his men, for example. Why? Qianlong ruled over vast lands, including many peoples. He was very aware of his minority status as a Manchu, and he was always trying to legitimize Manchu rule over a vast Han majority. Here you see Qianlong in his hunting capacity, hunting with his imperial guardsmen. And to the right you see part of a 5-language dictionary that shows all the languages of the realm that he ruled. And he really wanted to keep everything together by pointing out the similarities between all these people. So, for example, in the same work, the same Qianlong Tushe, he describes his own saber. This is Heaven Series number 1 of the best sabers he had. This is the sword that he would wear at the Grand Review of the Troops, a great martial spectacle held in Beijing every 3 years. What he did was he digged through old texts to find parallels between Manchu custom and Chinese tradition. So what he found was this reference in the Book of Later Han, the Ho Hanshu. Wearing peidao when on a vehicle, the blade is widely decorated with gold inlaid patterns. The scabbard is half covered with ray skin, decorated with slim golden lines in pattern in yellow color with colorful fittings. What's interesting about this is the word peidao, because Manchus would wear the waist-worn saber, but traditionally the Chinese elite, including their emperors and their higher officials, would always wear the straight sword. The saber would be something a little bit frowned upon, and it was looked down upon as being too martial, too military, and it was a thing for soldiers and for barbarians. So Qianlong must have been very happy to see a reference to a peidao used by someone this early on, and this describes the custom of the Duke of Zhou, who was an historical hero of classic Chinese literature. Interestingly, in this period of time from which this text dates, the peidao wouldn't have been a curved sword, but a straight sword with a single edge. But because the wording is the same, I think Qianlong hoped that nobody would know these intricacies about really early sword design. Later, he even commissioned a saber with the golden lines on the scabbard, exactly like the description in this later handbook. My conclusion. Reapplying ancient Chinese art motifs with deep spiritual meaning and referring to ancient texts of customs resembling Manchu ones was a way of legitimizing Manchu rule. Qianlong was basically saying, see, we are not so different. The cloud head design perfectly fit into Qianlong's narrative, an old symbol associated with the heavenly gate of ancient Chinese religion, still used as such by his Mongol allies. Clouds are also symbolically significant because the emperor was the son of heaven, operating under a heavenly mandate. His troops were called the heavenly troops, supposedly executing heaven's will. It fitted Qianlong's idea of keeping it all together through shared symbolism. Thank you.